hour along the southern border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, well, they've shut down the border crossing at San Ysidro. That's the port of entry between San Diego and Tijuana, Mexico. Authorities say that is due to some current activity. They have also deployed extra personnel there. Its own response to the organizers for the so-called caravan. They say that they would march toward that port of entry today. They're doing it, as you can see, at this hour. We'll get back to Journal editorial report in just a moment, but we're going to follow this for a moment. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Shawn.
And I'm Marthel Neville. Now, this is coming as the incoming Mexican government is disputing reports that it has reached a tentative deal with the Trump administration, requiring asylum seekers to wait on the Mexican side of the border while their cases go through the U.S. court system. President Trump taking a stance on the issue, saying no migrants will be released into the U.S. until their claims are processed. And he's doubling down on his threat to shut down all border crossings with Mexico and potentially shut down the government over funding for the border wall.
Our Jeff Paul is in a West Coast newsroom monitoring the situation as it stands right now. Jeff, what's the latest?
Yeah, we've been looking at the live feeds that are coming into the newsroom right now, where it appears there are groups of hundreds, possibly hundreds of migrants from that caravan that came up through Central America right now that are getting closer and closer to the U.S.-Mexico border. There have been demonstrations, we should say, on both sides of the border today, both in the U.S. and in Mexico. This group said to have got involved in a march that was supposed to be a peaceful march, and so far, just looking at the images, it does seem peaceful. It does appear, though, that there are several hundreds right now that are getting closer and closer to that San Ysidro point of entry. That's the one that is closest to San Diego, California. Pretty large gathering of people. We also know that U.S. Customs and Border Patrol says that it is aware of these marches and demonstrations. It's ready to respond. Haven't seen a response for them just yet, other than them closing traffic on both sides of the border at the moment.
And that traffic closing is both pedestrian and vehicular. A very busy crossing, 100,000 crossings so far every day, so it's one of the major crossings between us and Mexico. By the way, you know, by law, if you show up at a port of entry or along the border and you seek asylum, you are allowed a court hearing. It is a legal process that is ongoing. The president had talked about trying to detain some of these people across the border in Mexico and have the processing taken there so they don't show up in our country. About 750,000 are now waiting on asylum claims. It takes approximately 3 years to get that granted to about 10% of those who ask, and the government figures show that of 2,000, about 83% of those seeking asylum do show up for court. So we'll see what happens and how many are able to actually start that process, basically about 100 a day. And if you have 5,000 in the so-called caravan, this is going to be a long and slow process, as about 5,000 people are expected to eventually end up in Tijuana. The mayor there calling it a humanitarian crisis because of the inflow of people into Mexico from Central America.
And we will have more on this developing story for you at 4 p.m. Eastern here on the Fox News Channel. Eric and I will be back then. In the meantime, we're going to get you back to the Journal editorial.